Well, welcome, Viva El Birdos. I am Jason Hill, JP Hill over at the site, and we are here with Blake Newberry, one of our writers, and Scooter Simon. Heather is here with us, as well as we are bringing back, at least for today, the Viva El Birdos podcast. And so we don't know if this is a crossover event with Saturday Singles or a reunion event, even though it's my first time on and Blake's first time on, maybe. I know that Heather is an old vet at the VEB podcast, but here we are with something. And we just got through with Blogger Day up at Busch Stadium, where the Cardinals beat the Reds by a lot to a little. I think 11-3 was the final score, something like that.
Yeah, I think
but it was a great day. And yeah, how are you guys doing today?
Yeah, doing great. Blogger Day was a lot of fun.
I had a blast. It was very hot. I came home and immediately fell asleep. So it took a lot out of me.
Yeah. What I learned from the day is that I always want to go to Busch in a party suite. That's what I learned.
Yeah, that's what it
Right.
I think my phone said it felt like 107 degrees outside, so it was nice to have that air conditioning and get out of the heat.
Yeah, we made it through about the fourth inning. Me and my wife were there, and they were like, "Okay, we're going inside. They've got cookies and and hot dogs." So.
The bottomless drinks.
Yeah,
pretty nice. George, the bartender.
Yeah, George was great.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I just kind of wanted to see if you guys had any highlights from the day, something you stood out. We can talk, those of you that know about Blogger Day, I don't know if it's something, Heather, you guys used to talk about in the past. Or maybe this is the first time all three of us went. Have any of you guys been before?
Yeah,
that's my first time too.
Yeah. So I just kind of want to get you guys' thoughts and reactions. What was it like to be there and meet all those other content creators and writers? And yeah, how was the day for you?
Yeah, I thought it was really cool. There's a lot of people that I just interact with on Twitter on a daily basis, or people whose articles I read, and being able to put faces to the names was really cool. And then just for the Q&A, being able to see John Mozeliak come in and just be like a guy just kind of sitting there talking baseball with us, cracking jokes was a side of him that I feel like we never really get to see. It's always the official, like John Mozeliak in press conferences giving us his trademark Mo speak, but it was cool to see him just in a more normal, casual setting. Yeah,
and they didn't let us do video. We did get audio, but it did seem like without video there that he was very sort of relaxed and more off the record, so to speak.
He was even in sneakers.
He was.
I noticed.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, he's very casual. No bow tie, the white Converse. First of all, his outfit looks fantastic. If I had been able to ask my question, I was going to be like, first of all, great jacket. Love it. The blazer is amazing. Second of all, what would be your song if you pick one? Unfortunately, didn't get to ask those riveting questions that all the fans are wanting to know it. Maybe next time.
Yeah. I was thinking about it because I saw you're kind of standing behind me, and I saw you had your hand up. I was trying to make some space for you so you can get your question in, but of course I had to ask like the first one. I went to that thing and I told myself, this is what I always do. I'm like, okay, I'm probably not even going to ask a question. Then I was like, no, I'm going to ask a question, but I'm not going to ask it first. I'm not going to be the first one that asks a question. And then of course, I open my big mouth and ask him. But
someone's got to be first.
Yeah, someone's got to break the ice, I guess. But yeah, I asked him about the draft and development process, because I don't know if you guys saw. It hasn't been on Viva El Birdos, but if you're on Twitter yesterday, there was a graphic kind of making the rounds that the Cardinals are first since 2010. It's kind of complex, but it's basically like draft production versus expected production. So expected WAR, WAR, wins above replaces versus what they're expected to get by that draft pick value. And the Cardinals are first in that over the last 10 years, which is really impressive considering where they've been drafted. So I asked him about that and kind of wanted to get an idea of what he had to say about their successes in both the draft and the development process, because not only have they been successful in the draft, but then they've been able to develop these players into contributors at the major league level, and it doesn't look like there's any other franchise that's doing it quite on the level of the Cardinals.
Yeah, no, it really doesn't. It was fun hearing Mo talk about that, because I mean I saw the same graphic that you pointed out on Twitter, and it was rounds 1 through 10. So
Yeah,
I mean, you see guys like Brendan Donovan,
yeah,
and guys who are kind of in the back half of that, like 7 through 10 range, who are really contributing that. It feels like that's kind of where the Cardinals make their money, is they always get producers with the first round, but then you start getting later into the first half of the draft, and they still are consistently finding MLB players in that range. And I think that, again, that's Mo talked about how that was just kind of in conjunction with the scouting department, working with the analytics department, working with the player development department, and just kind of finding the right player and then producing them, that they do a really good job at.
yeah. I was thinking about, and I might do this as an article. I think it'd be worth it, especially since we've got quotes from Mo about it. Like, what would be some names that would fit in there? Because like I was thinking about that 2011 group, and I don't think any of them would fit, because they would have all been drafted before the parameters of that. So I think we're talking more like the Colton Wong and like Matt Adams maybe, and Jack Flaherty, Michael Wacha, I think probably would qualify. And then I think the cutoff for that one was like 2019. So you're not seeing Nolan Gorman, you're not seeing Matthew Libator, or you mentioned Donovan. Yeah. Maybe Edman would qualify, probably so.
I think Edman would have been in there still.
Yeah. But they were up around like 45 wins above replacement from that that window of a decade of drafting, which is just really incredible if you think about it.
Do you suspect that there might be some like 1 or 2 players that have done really well that could be propelling that number up?
I wondered about that, and that's why I'm gonna have to like go back and look, because I thought the same thing. Like, is it just like I see, but I don't even know who it would be, because like Carpenter would be the closest that would like really be pushing it up, but he surely was drafted before 2010, wasn't he?
You would think.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, this is all off the cuff.
He was in 2011.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so surely he was drafted before that. I couldn't think of anyone. Flaherty, I mean, like Martinez, but he wasn't drafted. Yeah, so it couldn't be Martinez.
Yeah.
Lance Lynn, I think, would have been before 2010, right? And but he'd be right on that edge there, too. So
right.
Yeah, because he was in Lynn was in the 2011 World Series. So
yeah, you'd be looking for a player that was drafted in 2010 or really early on, that has had like a 10-year career and amassed a lot since then, is what I would think.
Yeah.
If I were like trying to hunt this down.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And like the closest I could come kind of thinking through that exercise was Flaherty, but he doesn't have enough WAR because of his injuries. He would otherwise. But then I was like Bader. I mean, Bader's got some, but not, he's probably not even over 10.
Not 40,
I would think.
Yeah. And then is it just WAR for the Cardinals or in general?
I think it's in general. Yeah. I think they had to be drafted by the organization, but not necessarily with the organization. So like a Rosarena might count, but no, Rosarena wasn't drafted. So yeah, I don't even know.
They could have traded it away.
Yeah, someone on Twitter.
Be a bummer.
Yeah, exactly. Well, like Zach Gallen would be probably one, but he doesn't have that much WAR. But someone on Twitter, we were kind of talking about it, and they mentioned Sandy Alcantara, who, by the way, Mo brought up today. I thought that was really interesting. We can circle back around to that. That was fascinating.
That he wished he. Yeah, I made a mental note. I forgot about mostly everything, but there was a few things that stood out, and one was that he kind of regretted trading. Yeah. And in hindsight, not at the time, but like in hindsight, he wishes he would have kept Alcantara. But like, you don't know what you know until you know it.
Yeah. And he's got a pretty good, WAR. He's over 10, I think, already, which is pretty impressive. But he was a international pick, so he wasn't, doesn't count as a draft. So I would assume that qualifies as something else, since it was draft position versus expected position from that draft slot. So, Carlson maybe kind of fits in there a little bit too, but, it's just, it seems like it's spread out over a whole bunch of different guys.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And what would be interesting to compare is how much of it is for the organization versus for other organizations.
Yeah.
Like how much, if it's counting everything, then compare, okay, so how much did they actually benefit though? Like if you're drafting and then trading it away, that's not necessarily a great thing, you know. Maybe you shouldn't, you know, so that'd be an interesting step.
Can you guys think of anyone besides Galen to some extent and Alcantara over the last 10 years that they've traded that's actually, I mean, there's some have had off and on successes. A Rosa Reyna, you know, Oscar Mercado had his day in the sun, but
yeah,
you know, like Shelby Miller, you know, he kind of flamed out. Luke Weaver hasn't been. Carson Kelly, all the way back to like you know Zach Cox and who's the guy we traded for? Was it Holiday or someone? I can't think. Derek Barton, not Holiday, but you know, way back in the day. But I can't think of anyone that's really panned out real well for other teams.
Yeah, neither can I.
Right. Not that they drafted or anything like that.
Yeah.
They don't have a lot of misses.
No. Yeah. Well, what else kind of stood out to you from that interview? You mentioned the Alcantara thing. That was that was interesting. What else jumped out to you?
One of the things I enjoyed was hearing Mo talk about Jeff Albert. And at one point when he was talking about that, I thought this was, I don't know if I maybe missed this somewhere, if it had been reported or not, but it always felt like it was rumored that there was tension between Jeff Albert and Mike Schilt. I don't know if there was ever a concrete report on that, but Mo basically confirmed that today.
He kind of did, didn't he? Like it took me a minute to kind of like, wait a second, what did he just it was almost like he admitted that there was. Yeah.
Like I think at one point he almost point blank said that there was tension between Albert and their manager, and he said he didn't name Schilt specifically, but we all know that it was Schilt before Marmol. So
yeah,
I felt like he basically confirmed that, and I thought that was super interesting because then you know he went on to kind of sing the praises of Jeff Albert and all the things that he's done to overhaul the hitting approach the Cardinals have throughout the system, and how he's brought in a lot of technology and data that in fact, I think at one point he almost said their approach to hitting was almost archaic before Jeff Albert. And how
I didn't think it was that. I knew it was bad. I didn't know it was that bad. Yeah.
Yeah. I thought that was super interesting.
I found it interesting too, kind of in the same vein as that it seems like he reads some of the stuff that people write about. Like I would never imagine that John Mozeliak's opening any, you know, like Cardinals blog and reading what people write, but he does seem to at least have a knowledge of what people are talking about, because he kept mentioning it was almost like his feelings would get hurt by it, you know. I can't imagine they would get too hurt, but it was like he's kind of sensitive to what people, you know, which is like, oh, these people are human, so it's a good reminder about that. Of course, I am a deeply empathetic person, so I'm always thinking about that, like trying to frame stuff really, really politely, but but yeah, it seems like he really does read some of this stuff and would mention things like people were talking about Jeff Albert and not thinking he was doing a good job. And how it's like he's basically like, in your face, look how good of a job he's doing now.
Yeah. Well, we can come back to this in a minute, but did you guys notice that the way that he answered the question about Yadier Molina, because he was like, how many of you really even want Molina back? That was like, boy, he's really on the pulse there, because a lot of fans are kind of honestly disappointed with Molina this season, and Mozeliak has picked up on that.
Yeah, it was interesting.
I raised my hand.
He said, I did too. But he said at one point
real big
that he had to get off of social media because it was almost like making him depressed with how many people that he would just see saying he was doing a terrible job, or that Jeff Albert, or just like throughout the organization, they were making mistakes and things. And he just kind of wanted to block that out and just focus on doing his job, which I mean, is understandable, because there are times when Mozeliak is a punching bag or Jeff Albert's a punching bag, and calling for them to get fired. So, but he's definitely those things.
Yeah. I have found this to be true too. Like when we've got our own little niche community here at Viva El Birdos, and it's overall a pretty intelligent, smart, fun community. We don't have a whole lot of patience, it seems like, for junk, does that make sense? And so, but then you go out into the real world, like you go out to Cardinals Facebook and some of that Twitter stuff that I kind of limit who I follow. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, guys. I mean, wow, it's really, Tyler O'Neill strikes out and they're wanting to tar and feather him. It's really
you go to the gas station.
Yeah, it's just
and
really.
You talk to people at the gas station. That's a deep cut. Long-time listeners, readers might know what that one is. The gas station fans.
Yeah, right. For your oh shoot, I lost it. It's been a long day. Your cheap drinks.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. That's all I wanted after they got to a sizable lead. I was like, okay, we're at 5. Yeah. We just need 6. We can get cheap drinks. We'll be set for tomorrow. I think it's 3 days in a row we've gotten those. Yeah. It's been a good week for cheap drinks.
Yeah,
offense is out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I can always tell because I'm like, man, I've had so much soda this week. And I know the offense is doing well.
Yeah. We judge, and we should have our own stat for like a cheap drink offensive production stat or something like that. How many calories have we consumed of Dr. Pepper? It tells us how much how good the Cardinals offense is.
I think it was 2013 when the offense, that was the runners in scoring position year where they would just always get the runner in. There was like a shortage or some sort of cheap drink, like you'd go in and they'd be out of stuff because they were scoring 6 all the time. And so they're like, there's no more drinks. We are out.
Yeah.
It was a great summer.
I wanted to circle back real fast to that Jeff Albert thing, because I thought one of the things he said, and I think we kind of knew this, but one of the things that I think the readers might be interested in is that he basically confirmed too that Albert was really doing a lot of the overall big picture stuff organization wide. And I can't remember, he didn't say, and I know they brought in someone this season to help with offensive coordination. And I can't remember who that is now off the top of my head, but whoever that is really is handling more of the day-to-day, strategic planning for pitchers and stuff like that and working with hitters. And Jeff Albert is doing more of the big picture stuff now.
Yeah, which is interesting too, because then you see all of the young guys who have come up now with the Jeff Albert system. You got your Donovans and your Yepez's, and even Gorman has been in it for a while, and all these guys are coming up and doing well. That almost seems to vindicate Albert and his. It
really does.
Yeah,
I think so. Something's working. You just don't get this many prospects of such a wide range of talents and draft positions hitting the way that they're hitting, without giving the organization some serious credit in developing it.
There's Turner Ward, who's the assistant hitting coach, and then there's Patrick Elkins, the run production coach. Would that be either one?
Run production coach. Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I was like, oh, that's a thing.
Yeah.
Those are the only 2 besides Jeff Albert that I see that are like hitting coach type things.
Yeah.
Besides like Will McGee's an assistant coach.
Yeah. What was the first name again?
The bench coach.
Yeah. What was the first name again?
There's Turner Ward, the assistant hitting coach. Yeah. And then Patrick Elkins is the run production coach.
Yeah. I'd have to go back and check. But yeah, I think, boy, right now I can't remember. I know one of those was added in the offseason, if not both of them. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like almost like when the Giants kind of made waves last year with expanding their coaching staff, the Cardinals kind of followed suit and added one of those positions.
Yeah. And I remember talking about that quite a bit at the offseason. And then it's like, well, why did I lose track of it? Well, because the lockout happened. Yeah. And stole basically 3 months.
I forgot that happened.
Yeah. Yeah. Because back the stuff we were talking about back in October just lost completely, Anything else that stood out? I thought one of the comments that he made that was really interesting was about, I don't know if you guys saw, I didn't actually go read the article. I've been busy, but the stuff about Nolan Arenado and his comments about wanting to win the division. Someone asked him about that. Did you guys catch that?
Yeah, he said that he was basically just tired. He played with the Rockies his whole career. He wants to win the division and play in the wild card. And I think the question was like, does Arenado voicing that opinion, as well as the last years of Pujols and Molina, and potentially the last year of Wainwright, make the team more aggressive at the deadline.
Yeah.
And I most basically said no.
Yeah.
That's not going to change the approach, but he did, I think, in that same conversation, acknowledge the team's need for pitching. It's like, we clearly need innings. So it's not like he is going to sit there and do nothing, but if it's not going to be an all-in kind of a deadline.
Yeah, it's almost like he said no and yes, meaning that just the fact that Nolan Arenado said it is not going to motivate him to do anything different. But he also pretty much straightforward said, Nolan Arenado said that, and we all agree with him. We are in this to win the division. So, yeah.
I don't think he's just sitting there, which some people might have heard this, like, he's content with doing the wild card every year. And I don't think that's the case. I think every year the intention is to go win the division.
Yeah.
I think that is intention as well. He wants to win the division. So I think that Arenado saying that is not necessarily more motivating because he already is motivated on his own. And I thought it was funny in his answer. I think this was the answer where he said he learned not to speak in absolutes.
Yeah.
And I was like, he's basically acknowledging the origin of Mo speak.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, oh my gosh, he knows he does it.
Yeah, and I think in that conversation or something similar too, he was like, "Yeah, we're not taking anything off the table anymore. We're not going to say that we're not going to trade anybody." And then he did say, "Although I'd like to keep Jordan Walker." So
yeah,
I wouldn't look for that Jordan Walker for a Juan Soto trade anytime soon, folks.
Well, yeah, and in that same conversation about the trade deadline too, I mean, he did acknowledge that the trade deadline is the worst time to make a trade.
Yeah.
Because you have them for, like, if you get a rental, you have them for 50 games or something like that. And then it's when everybody's trying to find players too. So the cost is driven up. So it definitely feels like, and I mean, we've seen this in the past with the Goldschmidt and the Arenado trades, but it feels like he prefers to do his business at the end of the season / before the start of the next season, as opposed to making those massive blockbusters at the deadline.
Yeah. And I think in that same thing,
I think that's a good strategy too.
Yeah, go ahead, Heather. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Oh, no, you're fine. I just said, I think that's a good strategy too. I think that makes a lot of sense because exactly sort of the reasons he gave, and that you don't have the rental, and especially with how the dynamic of the teams play out anymore, where you have tanking teams versus these teams that are kind of always in the mix. They're just the asking price for players at the deadline, because there's so many teams in the mix, and then there are the tanking teams. The asking price is just so high anymore for a deadline player that it's just, I never liked, and you risk, which you kind of mentioned this too, there's some intangible things that go along with it. Like they sort of look for maybe a veteran pitcher or someone that they can bring on that'll be re-energized, which I thought was an interesting thing, that there's some intangibles. But you also risk there's team chemistry and stuff. And I remember when they traded like Alan Craig and Joe Kelly away, that was kind of a shot in the arm maybe for the team, but it was sad. That was a sad day for everyone.
Yeah,
so there's a few things like that too.
Yeah. Yeah, I think too, along those lines, I thought it was interesting. I don't want to read too much into it at all, but one of the things that he said was he kind of acknowledged that the acquisitions they made last year at the deadline with, I guess it would be Lester and Happ, but then probably a little bit before that too with McFarland and Luis Garcia, was almost like 100% in response to the inability of the pitching staff last year to throw strikes. And so they were literally, he said they literally went out there like, who's throwing strikes that's available? Let's just get those guys, And and I think we kind of maybe read a little bit into that as far as like it being a strategy, kind of putting two and two together with Busch Stadium and the elite defense, and wanting that maybe the team really was looking for strike throwers who throw sinker balls and but really aren't very good pitchers. And then that kind of got reinforced a little bit with Steven Matz and that acquisition in the offseason. And I think maybe we might be leaning a little bit too much into that narrative this offseason, because he did make it clear that, they might look at something like that again, or they could go look at, a quality starter with a control, and that was sitting not at the top of the rotation, but somewhere a little different than where Lester sat last year.
It's like he was just personally sick of watching the walks.
Yeah, it kind of sounded like
He's like,
yeah.
Right. He's like, I can't deal with it anymore. I need someone to throw any strikes. I don't even care.
Yeah.
No, but that I'm sure there is like a strategy to it, but it was also just like, that's not fun to watch. That's not enjoyable.
Yeah. He did say too, and I'll just sort of throw this out there, that the team is looking for innings, and no shock, but if we as a blog are preparing, trade deadline articles, I wouldn't look for a catcher now based on what he said today. I wouldn't look for an outfielder or anything like that. I would be looking for a starting pitcher. I think that's what they're interested in. Whether they'll get one or not is another story, but that seems to be maybe not 100% of their focus, but that's where they're looking.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we heard him talk about the catching situation a little bit with Yachty coming back, and I mean, it sounded like he was excited for that, obviously. Yeah. And then with him, I think one point near the end said Kisner was playing well, and he was like knocking on wood, hoping that continues. So I mean,
he seems to really like Kisner, like Mo likes Kis. Yeah.
Like, I mean, it doesn't mean they don't add like a veteran catcher, but I honestly, my expectation for that happening now is a little bit lower.
Yeah.
It does seem like they want to see what Kis can do the rest of the season. And maybe if he, if this hot streak continues, then great. But if he keeps playing like he had, then maybe this is his last year. But it does feel like they're ready to ride out the rest of the year with that Kisner-Yachty tandem for good or for ill. Whether that's the right choice or not can be debated, but that feels like what's going to happen.
I wish that I would have had more time. There's after the fact, you always think of dozens of questions you would have liked to have asked, but I would have loved to have asked him. And maybe he's talked about this somewhere else, but I don't watch the pre and post games, to be honest, guys. But I'd like to hear what he had to say about Ivan Herrera's first look at the majors and what he thought about that and what Herrera needs to work on. Because I don't think it wasn't a total failure at all. It was just a good exposure, a good lesson for him. I know they want him to play every day, but I'm just curious to see what they might have said he needs to work on now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I know he had that sporadic playing time too, which
I mean, it's not what he needs.
A rhythm, yeah. I mean, it's what we've seen every backup catcher behind Yachty have ever.
Yeah.
So I mean, I probably would have liked to see more of Herrera while Yachty's been gone, perhaps instead of roaming. But well, it would have been interesting to hear what Mo had to say about that.
Yeah. Any other takeaways from Mo's interview that you guys noticed?
Oh, I thought it was cool when he was talking about the pitch clock. He said he's a big proponent of the pitch clock. And I mean, he made a joke about how he got home at like 11:30 or something after the game. What would that have been? Friday night.
Yeah.
And how he's, the pitch clock has worked in the minors, and just getting the game moving and keeping it flowing and ending at a reasonable time is far more preferable than what it is now. So, I mean, it feels like he is trying to get that to come, and he thinks the players should just adapt to it.
Yeah. Yeah. That'll be interesting. Anything from you, Heather, that you noticed? Anything else?
No. He does have like a lightness about him that I feel like in some of the more recent years hasn't been there. And I know there's like the pandemic and stuff, but even before then, it just seemed, I don't know how to explain it other than just personally. He seems very personable and just like light, like he's having a good time with this team, which is always nice to see. Before, I don't know, sometimes they would pan the camera over to him and it would just look like he was having the worst day. So I was kind of expecting him to be a little bit grumpier, but he was, like I said, like the white Converse and the like navy blazer stuff, and just seemed to be very, very gracious and happy to be there. So it was pretty cool. It was a good experience for sure.
Yeah. Well, it's a big week in baseball, even though there's not going to be any games except for an all-star game. I think right now the Futures game is playing. And I don't know if you guys saw this or not, but Mason Wynn from shortstop over 100 miles per hour to first. That's the big news of the day.
Wow.
Today.
I just saw something about him, but it was just very quick. I didn't actually look at it. I was like, oh, cool, Mason won. And then I kept going.
Yeah, the major league record on StatCast, at least, which would be short. I mean, StatCast has only been around so long. With 90, what was it? Like 97.8, 98.7?
I think it was 97.6 with O'Neal Cruz.
O'Neal Cruz.
Yeah.
Yeah. So first chance he got in the futures game, Mason Wynn blew that out of the water by 2 miles an hour. So
yeah. I saw something cool. I think it was Jeff Pontes for Baseball America. Talked to Wynn before the futures game.
Yeah, I saw that.
He was talking to Cruz he was talking about Cruz's record, and Mason Wynn basically said, if I get a ball hit to me and I have a chance, I'm going to uncork it and break that record.
Break the record.
And like his first or second inning, he throws it 100 miles per hour and does. Yeah, that's really cool.
I kind of want him to take that. I'm glad he's hitting so well and doing so well, but I kind of like to see him on the mound again.
Honestly, you got to look at he hit on the. He could probably touch 100 on the mound too. You'd think.
Yeah. So that's coming up then. Then we got the draft starting on Sunday. And I mentioned this in a comment, and I know a lot of you are excited about it, but I'll just go ahead and announce it now. Big John Mize, one of our beloved commenters, will be joining me on a podcast on Tuesday, which we'll probably publish on Wednesday. And so Big John Mize will be breaking down the first couple picks of the Cardinals draft, and I will be trying to keep up. I'll admit I'm not a draft guru at all, but I'll try to ask John. By the way, his name's not John. Of course, John Mize, Johnny Mize, the great legendary player from the 1930s, I think, won a Triple Crown. Anyway. But try to keep up, try to ask him the right questions to get the right information. But that should be out on Wednesday morning. And it's going to be well worth your time. And then we got the home run derby with Albert Pujols, and then the All-Star game. So yeah, what are you guys looking forward to this week? What do you want to see?
I don't know. I think the home run derby with Albert Pujols is going to be sweet. I think he's facing off with Schwarber too.
Yeah, he is.
Round,
yeah,
ex-Cub there, so that'll be fun. I would love to see Pujols at least advance past one round so we can just see as much of him as possible.
Yeah. Yep. Heather, anything you're looking forward to?
For me. Yeah, I want to see Albert Pujols in the home run derby. I think in the past when he's done it, he's that great of a turn, like a show. Is that right? Do you guys remember at all?
I don't remember.
I feel like there was one time I was rooting for him and he didn't. And I think he also did it when the All-Star game in St. Louis. And I don't think he made it super far, maybe one round and then was out. So I don't necessarily expect him to do that great, but it would be so cool if he did,
Yeah. I think thinking really back. I think thinking back, because I remember that he has such a line drive swing that it didn't lend itself to, like some of these other guys that just probably like Josh Hamilton or someone at that time, didn't lend itself to, big, long, lots of home runs. But, he was smoking line drives all over the park. So.
Right. And I was thinking too, they're always so worried about messing up their swing. But now that he's, I feel like he could really just uncork, and really just try to hit them as far as possible and not have to worry about any of that because, I mean, you're not playing every day, every couple of days. You could get your swing back if you had to, So I think you could really go for it. So maybe, but I'm not going to get my hopes up, but it would be so cool.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, guys. Well, hey.
I always like.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I was gonna say I always like the celebrity softball game they do too, because there's usually Ozzie Smith in there. Yeah. So I think that's pretty fun. That's the only other thing.
Yeah. I haven't watched that in a couple of years, but it used to be fun to watch them try to play softball when they've never played. Some of them alongside guys like Ozzie Smith.
Right.
So. Yeah. Well, hey, everyone, guys, it was great to be here with you to resurrect the VEB podcast. And I don't know, I think maybe this is something we should do more often. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I'd be good for that. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I always have fun doing these.
Yeah. So we'll see how it goes. No promises right now, but I will have a podcast myself on Tuesday with Big John, and maybe we can make this a regular thing. You'll just have to wait and see as the content comes out. So, but anyway, for Blake and for Heather, Scooter Simon over on VEB, we're so glad you're here with us. And remember, VEB.com, VivaElBirdos.com. We'll see you on the site. Have a great day.